Film Club.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and with me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
Every week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us. We dive into one of cinema's best. And Andy, this week, we are here to watch Kes.
Kes is a film about a young lad who's not really got any friends at school. He's not really got massive aspirations. His dad's not present in his life. He's not really got much to show for himself, but he finds his own life. He finds his own friend in a kestrel called Kes, who he trains. And the film is about his relationship with his bird, but also his relationship with his peers and his teachers.
Kes is directed by a guy called Ken Loach. And I am very fascinated to see what people outside of the UK, and particularly outside of our area, how they think of Ken Loach. Because when Ken Loach releases a film here, it's a bit of an event. We know about it. He's a very well-known director. He comes from the north of England. We're from the north of England. His films are frequently about the fringes of the UK, places kind of outside of London, and how they're sometimes forgotten about and how they're left on the outside of society. They're about people who are, they're struggling with that pressure of sort of limited options. They are working class people. And what this boils down to, I think, is Kes is archetypically what I think of when I think of kitchen sink realism. It is like the definitive film for me in that respect.
I agree. And you look at the areas this is based around, the 60s, 70s, you've gone about the economically deprived areas. We have like steel industries, coal industries that were quite big at the time. These working class, it was hard to get these jobs. These jobs are running down because the coal mines were shutting out with people who were importing from abroad. So another great film to show this is The Full Monty. Now, what we have in Kes is a film which is a narrative based on the actual class at the time almost in the school and the educational system. And he actually goes on, so Ken Loach goes on to say about this in the book, Life After Kes. He actually has this really good quote. The film itself should be dedicated to all the lads who failed out 11 plus. It's a colossal waste of people and talent, often through schools where potential is not brought out. Now, for me, I don't know about you, Andy, but for me, this really resonated with me because the film itself, almost this commentary on the educational system, hits very close to home. So me and you from the northeast, from a town that's it was kind of known as a working class town. It was in the 60s, 70s, big steelworks. There was a lot of unskilled labourers that worked in those industries that even recently got made redundant. Now, these 11 exams is something that my dad did. That the young lad here, what's his name, Andy?
He's called Billy Casper.
Yeah, Billy Casper, because they referred to him as Casper, which threw me off. So obviously he's training his kestrel. Now, my granddad used to train greyhounds that would race on tracks, and his granddad's, so my great granddad would then rear these greyhounds, sell them on, and all this. So it was almost like a Del Boy situation. You'd work around your current job at the time. Our granddad was also work extra shifts. He had 4 kids to bring up and all this. They'd make sure that my dad and his siblings would go through the school. And it turns out that our dad, when it came to those 11 exams, what they do is that they're there to put you into comprehensive school, which is what Billy's in, or you go into a grammar school, which kind of leads you into like kind of white collar jobs. Your comprehensive school, and he says it in this meeting with the towards the end of the film where he's not really paying much attention. He's saying, you can do you can do an apprenticeship, and it's a system where, at least from what I've read about Ken Loach, is he feels it's designed to almost like let you down, put you on a path. That the director went through this, and the actual guy that the book's based off.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to our dad, he worked hard and he ended up passing and doing these O levels that part of the comprehensive thing, and he went to steelworks, but he went in as a higher job, and he worked hard for it, and it's how much that hit home emotionally. Hit me, it really did.
And that is always where things like kitchen sink realism sort of shine. Like, they are designed to be about a slice of life, and they're often representative of the working class. They're usually about angry young men. This is the phrase that sort of defines kitchen sink realism. It's the idea of angry young men and people who have either been let down by the systems that surround them, or the systems themselves have in some way infringed and manipulated them. Mm-hmm. You mentioned very briefly there a moment where Billy goes to his meeting about his employment. And all along, Billy's been saying he doesn't want to go to the mines. He doesn't want to go to the mines. But you see quite succinctly in that sequence how Billy doesn't have another option. He's offered basically manual labor or an office job. He says, I don't want to work in an office. I like working with my hands. So the guy obviously lists a couple of options, but you know that in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, a month, Billy's going to be heading down the mines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you absolutely know that what they're doing is they're just slowly funneling him into what the town needs. And the town for Billy is a mining town. And that culture, that idea of representation, that sort of what kitchen sink realism is about, is sort of like representing a little subclass of something and showing it on screen and showing it in a very honest way, not necessarily a dramatized way. This isn't about like some sort of heightened...
This is so honest.
This isn't... Yeah, it's honest. It's not about a heightened sequence. It's not about this, this super elated version of Billy's life where like he's sort of like rags to riches. He's absolutely not. The film is instead, it's just about rags. It's about what are rags about. It asks the question, what is Billy's life about? He doesn't, sort of conquer the bullies in his life, and he doesn't work his way out of working class. Instead, it's just an observation, and it's just a commentary. And obviously what Ken Loach sort of does is he sort of gives this scathing retort about the whole thing. He doesn't necessarily do it in an overt way. He's not shouting at you like, this isn't okay, this is a bad environment. But what he does instead...
It's a biased opinion, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. He just lets you sort of objectively watch it. But he knows that in just letting you objectively be exposed to this, what it does is it ultimately makes you sort of like frustrated. It makes you feel what Billy is feeling. Billy is on some level, he doesn't know why, but he's frustrated about something. And that's what Ken Loach manages to do here. He's in such a direct manner. He manages to give you the feeling of what it's like to grow up in, 1960s, north of England?
Yeah, it's about that, yeah. But then to contrast that as well, he also gives you like a moment of promise, like an optimistic outlook, which is, this area has got such a lovely wildlife around it. And it's a subject that's me and you, or at least yourself, have approached before, because you actually did a film that really reminded me of that film, a short film called Pig the Dog that went up for Channel 4, one of the shorts. It's fantastic. If you get it out, I don't know if Andy will let me in comments, but and that's about the local area. It's about like living off the environment around you, and it's a really, really lovely approach to say that yes, just because it's economically deprived doesn't mean to say there's a sense of beauty around the area, which he does really well, especially with the kestrel training scenes.
I'll let you post that as long as you remind everybody that the credits are fucked up at the end.
So I actually saw this just on a side note, and I was thinking, I'm sure Andy was the camera up and not the boom up.
Yep.
But I remember you telling me that.
One thing on the wildlife, by the way, that is something which, again, I don't mean to just have this sort of like be a personal introspection for you and I, but that is something that is really rooted in our area, because we live on a fringe. We live in sort of an environment where you're never that far away from a field, or you're never that far away from land that has wildlife in it. You can be driving down the road and we literally have signs because like deers might just run across your road at any given moment. We used to live in an area sort of like surrounded by thick forest, and there is wildlife there. There's a culture built up around that wildlife, and someone like Billy sort of speaks to us. I know my dad in particular.
Absolutely.
When I was young, he kept birds. He kept tawny owls, and
oh yeah, of course,
he kept snowy owls and that sort of stuff. And like our freezer was full of mice because he had to feed them the mice. A lot of what Billy's sort of doing here is something that isn't just. It's not a strange character quirk. It speaks to the sort of escapism that people from our areas would indulge in.
I completely forgot about your bird situation.
My bird situation.
I remember your owlery at the back, Avery. Sorry. So let's move on to something we need to mention, which is Billy himself, Billy Casper, who is played by David Bradley. So the David Bradley came in without like a professional acting kind of credit. He came into this film just almost kind of pushed to do his thing by Ken Loach. And my God, did he do it well? I mean, at the start of the film, I was a bit, all right, he's talking quite fast. Even for me, he was like, bloody hell, this kid is, he's nipping the nail on the head, the way they have the retorts, especially in the shop scene. It's very, very dynamic dialogue, which is quite, representative of the Northeast dialect. He doesn't really relate to others. The only person he relates to is with his teacher when he's inside the area of Kez himself, but the person he's actually looking at is Kez. Not, he's talking to his teacher through Kez, the bird. Yeah. And all that kind of acting, all that kind of front and everything like that for someone who, he didn't come in with any professional credits is outstanding.
Yeah, he carries a lot of the film, and like people in years past have sort of talked quite a lot about how David Bradley did such a great performance here. And it is one that is totally natural. It's one where he manages to keep up with everybody else in the film, which, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do. And he holds the weight of this film. Like, he is the heart and soul of Kes. And to go in there and do sort of like, even like simple things, like immensely brave scenes for an actor to do, like, performing nude. But he was 14, 15 when he did this? Like,
yeah, I thought this was bloody hell, like, imagine coming in.
Hell of a performance.
That football scene, by the way, we were talking about introspective.
Hilarious.
Mate, that is absolutely school 101. Picked last, freezing cold outside, muddy, hanging off the goalpost, being told not to.
Where he's wearing the giant shorts. He's put his arms inside the giant
that's
shorts.
What he did. That's what he did because you were freezing. Your teacher's playing on the opposite team. He's got the best players. He's taking the penalty, saying, "No, it's cheating." That was absolutely tried and tested school for me.
Fucking funny. He's talking about like he's living out this weird fantasy because he's like naming different clubs that they're all playing.
Yeah,
and, like he's the ref, but he's also like one of the players. I'm like, fucking hell, this is funny.
But he calls himself like George Best or something. It's like, what are you doing, mate?
The best thing about this is that Ken Loach manages to like juggle scenes that are that sort of funny and comedic, and then he also manages to juggle such immensely heartbreaking scenes, like the one at the end.
God.
This film ends on such a dour note. Like you get this you definitely get this sense of like, because it's slice of life will definitely go on, but it's such a sad ending.
I haven't seen Kes before. I thought I had before. However, I did know about the ending because I've spoken about my friends. You can't really go this long and not know about the ending of Kes. Anyway, so I knew it was coming, but at the same time, when it came and the impact, and I didn't know it was actually his brother. I didn't know, like, the start of the film, he doesn't have the best relationship with his brother, but it's very sadistic. And you can see that the heartbreak, and it's where his mum goes, "Oh, you can get another one." It's like, oh my God, it's not the point.
Yeah,
it's not the point.
It's that
everyone's against him.
It's that classic thing, isn't it? Like his mum cares for a second, and then when it becomes too much of a bother, she's done with it. She needs it to go away.
Suddenly, like that, the film's done. Straight to credits.
There is Kes. You can let us know what you thought of Kes down in the comments below, and really do, because being so close to the material, it definitely is going to sort of colour both mine and Andy's sort of opinion in this film. So I'd love to get some opinion from outside of that space. But you can let us know in the comments below what you thought, or you can hit us up on Twitter, as always. But Andy and I will be back once again next week, because we're going to take a look at another British classic with This Is England.
Set in the Northeast as well. If you need any help with translations, put them in the comments below. We'll try and give you a hand preparation for next week. But yeah, cheers.
Till then, get watching.